She was only 18, a sweet, quiet girl who loved books and flowers. Her dream? A simple life, filled with laughter and love. But one day, everything changed. Her poor father made a terrible deal with a man 3 times her age. A man who wore suits like armor and smiled like a stranger. He was rich, powerful, and cold as ice. She begged not to go. But the wedding was set. And everyone said, "It's for your own good." But what really happened on their wedding night? That one night would change everything. Secrets would break free. Hearts would break too. But something surprising was waiting, something no one saw coming. Not even her. This is a story about pain, hope, and a love that slowly learns to bloom in the darkest place. Before we start the story, leave a comment to let us know where you're watching from. Like and subscribe to support our community. Your support means a lot to us. Now, enjoy the story as we continue. The sun was setting, painting the sky with orange and pink. Birds flew home. The small village was quiet. But inside a tiny house with cracked walls, a storm was growing. Her name was Elsie. She was 18, gentle like a morning breeze, and her smile could calm crying babies. Everyone loved Elsie. She was the kind of girl who helped old women carry water, shared her lunch with children, and sang to the moon when no one was watching. She believed in love, the soft kind, the forever kind. But that evening, her world cracked open. "Come, Elsie," her father said softly. His voice shook. "We need to talk." Elsie followed him to the wooden bench outside. The air was quiet. Too quiet. He didn't look at her. "Do you remember what I always told you?" he asked. "That a father protects his daughter, even if it hurts?" Elsie nodded slowly. Her heart felt heavy, though she didn't know why. "I've made a promise," he said. "To a man, a good man. He will take care of you." Elsie's heart skipped. "A man? What kind of promise, Papa?" she whispered. He looked at her now, his eyes filled with guilt. "You are to be married, Elsie." The words slammed into her chest. "Married? To who?" His voice broke. "To Mr. Damon Blackwood." Elsie gasped. Everyone knew Mr. Blackwood. He was the rich man in the black car who never smiled. He owned half the village. He was older, maybe 40. No one really knew. He didn't talk much. His eyes were cold, like a frozen river. Elsie stood up. Her hands shook. "No, Papa. No. He's not for me." "I owe him, Elsie," her father said, tears falling now. "He saved my life when I was sick. I had no money. I begged him. And now, he's asking for you. It's the only way." Elsie fell to her knees. Her heart felt like it was tearing apart. "I don't love him," she whispered. "He doesn't even know me." Her father held her tight. "I know," he said, "but he promised you'll be safe. No harm will come to you. Just trust me." But how could she trust a world that gave her away like a coin? That night, Elsie didn't sleep. She held her pillow tight and cried quietly. Outside, the moon watched her from above, whispering no answers. In another part of the village, Damon Blackwood sat in a dark room. He stared at a photo of a young girl smiling with her father. Elsie. His jaw was tight. His hands were folded. And though he looked calm, there was something stormy in his eyes. He didn't believe in love. Not after what happened to him long ago. But now, he was going to marry this girl. And he had his reasons. Reasons no one knew. Damon Blackwood never smiled. Not when he closed a deal. Not when he saw the ocean. Not even when he bought his first mansion. He believed feelings were weak. And love? He thought it was a lie people told to feel better. Damon was 42, tall, neatly dressed in suits darker than night. His voice was calm but deep, and when he spoke, people listened. He was powerful, but inside, he was alone. His house was big but quiet. No laughter, no music, just the ticking of clocks and the clicking of his shoes on marble floors. He didn't want a wife. Not before. But something had changed. He had enemies now. People who wanted to ruin him. People who said, "He's heartless. He has no family. He's a shadow." And shadows, Damon knew, were easy to erase. So he made a decision. "I need a wife," he told his assistant. "Someone pure. Someone untouched by the world. A girl who won't ask questions." His assistant blinked. "Sir, may I ask why?" Damon looked out the window. He didn't answer for a while. Then, in a low voice, he said, "Because I want the world to see I can love, even if I can't feel it." So they searched. Village after village. Names, photos, families. Until one day, a man came to him. A desperate man with a sick heart and no money. "I will give you anything," he begged. "Just help me live." Damon looked at the man, then at the photo in his pocket. A girl with soft brown eyes and a smile that looked like spring. Elsie. Damon paused. Then he made the deal. He saved the man. And he claimed the girl. Not because he loved her. Not because he knew her. But because something inside her photo whispered peace. Still, he wasn't kind. He didn't send flowers. He didn't write letters. All he said was, "We'll marry in 3 weeks." And that was it. Far away, in her little room, Elsie counted the days with dread. Every tick of the clock felt like a step toward a life she never chose. But she had no choice. The wedding dress came. White and silent. Strangers measured her, brushed her hair, and told her, "You're lucky. Girls would give anything to be in your place." But Elsie didn't feel lucky. She felt like a bird in a cage. A bird that was learning what it meant to lose her sky. The village was quiet that morning. Too quiet. Usually, weddings were loud. Music filled the air. Women danced. Children ran with flowers. Bells sang from the church tower. But not today. Today, the sky was gray. The clouds looked sad. And the bells didn't sing. Elsie stood in front of a mirror in a long white dress. She didn't smile. Her lips didn't move. Her eyes had no light. She looked like a doll, beautiful but hollow. Behind her, her aunt whispered, "You look like an angel." But Elsie didn't feel like one. Her hands were cold. Her heart beat slowly, like it didn't want to move forward. She looked outside. People were already seated. Strangers in clean clothes. Fancy cars parked in places where goats used to play. And in the middle of it all stood Damon Blackwood. Still, sharp, silent. His black suit made him look like the end of a story, not the start. He didn't look up. He just waited. The ceremony was fast. Too fast. The priest spoke. Elsie barely heard him. "Do you, Damon Blackwood, take this young woman to be your wife?" "I do," he said, like he was signing a contract. "Do you, Elsie?" Elsie paused. She looked at her father. His eyes were red. She looked at Damon. His eyes were empty. And still, she whispered, "I do." Just like that, it was done. No kiss. No cheers. No dancing. Just silence. And 1,000 broken dreams floating in the air like dust. That night, the big house welcomed her like a ghost welcomes the dark. marble floors, gold mirrors, long hallways that echoed her footsteps. Damon walked ahead, not waiting. "This way," he said. He led her to her room. "Yes," he said. "You will stay here. You don't have to sleep in my room." Elsie blinked. She had prepared her heart for the worst. But this was confusing. "I thought," she began. Damon turned, his face unreadable. "You thought I would touch you? Force you?" He shook his head. "I may be many things. Cold, ruthless, distant. But I'm not a monster." Elsie swallowed. "Then why marry me?" He paused at the door. Then he whispered something she didn't expect. "Because once a girl like you saved me. But I was too broken to hold on to her. Maybe this is my second chance." And then he walked away, leaving her alone with her thoughts, and a heart that didn't know whether to break or hope. Elsie woke up in a bed softer than clouds, wrapped in white sheets that smelled of roses. But the softness didn't warm her heart. She still felt like a stranger in a castle built with ice. The room was huge. The curtains were gold. The walls were quiet. Everything was perfect, but it didn't feel like home. She walked to the window. Outside, the garden looked like something from a storybook, neatly trimmed, flowers blooming, birds dancing around the fountain. It was beautiful, but not hers. Days passed. Damon stayed distant. He worked all day. He came home late. Sometimes he didn't speak at all. They ate dinner together, but in silence. They lived under the same roof, but in different worlds. Elsie tried to be kind. She watered the flowers. She greeted the house staff. She even smiled, sometimes, when no one was looking. But deep inside, she was lonely. One afternoon, the rain fell gently. Elsie walked through the house, exploring. She found a locked room. It had no name, no number, just a silver keyhole that glowed faintly in the hallway light. Something about it pulled her. "Don't go in there," came a voice. She turned. Damon. He stood at the end of the hallway, arms folded. His voice was calm, but his eyes, they weren't. Elsie stepped back. "I was just—" "I know," he said. Then softer, "That room is full of memories that are better left sleeping." Elsie looked at the door again. "What's inside?" she asked. Damon looked at her for a long time. Then, for the first time since their wedding, his voice cracked. "A photo, a song, a letter. And a promise I broke." He walked away. But Elsie didn't. She sat by the door for hours. She didn't know why. Maybe because her heart knew something her mind didn't. Later that night, she couldn't sleep. So she wandered downstairs. She saw light in the music room. Damon was sitting by the piano, alone, playing a slow song. His fingers moved gently. His head was down. His eyes were closed. Elsie watched from behind the door. The music was sad, like a voice that wanted to cry but couldn't. When he finished, he sighed. She stepped in slowly. "I didn't know you played," she said. Damon turned. His face was bare, like his guard had dropped. "I used to," he said, "when I had someone to play for." Elsie tilted her head. Was she the one in that room? Damon looked away. "Yes." "Did you love her?" He nodded. "But she died. And I stopped being human that day." Elsie's heart broke for him. Not because of the story, but because she saw something behind his cold eyes. Pain. Real pain. The kind that never heals. She sat beside him. He didn't stop her. And for the first time since the wedding, they just sat. No noise. No walls. No lies. Just silence. And silence, sometimes, is the beginning of healing. The next morning, the rain had stopped. Sunlight fell through the windows like soft gold, warming the cold house just a little. Elsie woke up with the memory of music still playing in her chest. She walked downstairs and found Damon already dressed. As usual, his suit was perfect. His face, serious. But something had changed. He looked softer. "I want to show you something," he said quietly. Elsie blinked. "Me?" He nodded once. "Follow me." They walked in silence. Through the long hallways. Down the wide staircase. Past the silver door that still held its secrets. Outside, the morning air smelled like flowers. Damon led her through the back garden. Then past a tall hedge, into a hidden space. Elsie gasped. A small, private garden sat there, closed off, quiet, and full of color. There were roses, tulips, daffodils, even little butterflies fluttering around. And in the middle stood a white bench under a tree. It was beautiful. "This," Damon began, "used to belong to her. The one I lost." Elsie stayed silent. "But today I want it to be yours." Her eyes widened. "Mine." He nodded. "You remind me of sunlight." Elsie's voice cracked. "But I thought you didn't want this marriage." "I didn't," he said softly. "And I still don't understand what it is I'm feeling. But something about you is changing me." Elsie turned her face to the sky to hide her tears. No one had ever given her something so gentle, so personal. Not for money, not for pride, but just for her. From that day, Elsie came to the garden often. She read books there. She wrote letters she never sent. She whispered her feelings into the wind. Sometimes, Damon joined her. Not to talk. Not to ask questions. Just to sit. Side by side. Two souls learning how to breathe again. Then one afternoon, he brought her a small wooden box. "This was hers too," he said. "But I think it belongs to you now." Inside, there was a tiny silver locket. When Elsie opened it, she found a tiny photo. A girl. Smiling. Eyes bright like hope. "She was my fiancée," Damon said. "We were young. She died in an accident, because I was too busy chasing money to be there." Elsie looked up at him. His eyes were glassy. "I buried her. But I never buried the guilt." He swallowed hard. "But you bring peace to this house. To me. And maybe that's a kind of healing I never knew I needed." Elsie held the locket to her chest. She didn't speak. She just stood up and hugged him. For a long time. And Damon, he let her. The house was quiet again that evening, but this time it wasn't a sad silence. It was soft, peaceful, the kind of silence that comes after tears have been dried and hearts have been touched. Elsie sat in the garden long after sunset. The sky had turned navy blue, sprinkled with stars. Fireflies danced above the flowers like tiny lanterns in the dark. She had her blanket around her shoulders. She didn't want to go inside just yet. That garden had become her safe place. She whispered to the stars, "Is it okay to feel something for him?" Behind her, Damon appeared, holding a cup of warm tea. "I thought you might be cold," he said. Elsie smiled gently. "You read my mind." He handed her the tea and sat beside her on the bench. For a long time, they didn't talk. Just listened. To the wind. The crickets. The quiet rhythm of each other's breathing. Then Damon said something soft. "I used to think love was weak. That feelings made people foolish." Elsie turned to him. "But now?" she asked. He looked at her, eyes gentle for the first time. "Now I think love is the only reason to be alive at all." Later that night, Elsie walked toward her room, but her feet stopped at the hallway corner. Damon stood there, still, hesitant. "Would you like to stay by the fireplace?" he asked. Her heart skipped, not because of fear, but because something had shifted. "Yes," she whispered. They sat on the rug in front of the glowing fire. The flames made dancing shadows on the walls. Damon poured hot cocoa into 2 mugs. Elsie giggled. "You made this." He chuckled. "Don't look so shocked. I'm not completely heartless." They talked about simple things. Childhood stories. Favorite books. Secret dreams. For the first time, Damon laughed. A real laugh. Warm. Alive. Elsie had never seen him so human. When her eyes grew heavy, she leaned her head against his shoulder. "I'm sorry," she whispered sleepily. "For what?" he asked. "For thinking you didn't have a heart." Damon didn't answer. He just gently wrapped his arm around her. And right there, in front of the fireplace, with her head on his chest and the flames flickering softly, Elsie fell asleep in his arms. Damon didn't move. He sat there all night, holding her, watching her breathe, feeling, for the first time in years, that maybe, just maybe, he didn't have to be alone anymore. Let's stir the waters a little, because even blooming love can be tested by the past. The next morning came with thunder. Not in the sky, but in the house. Elsie woke up to raised voices downstairs. Angry, sharp, fast. She sat up quickly, heart pounding. "Damon," she whispered, stepping out of bed. The shouting grew louder. She followed the sound, barefoot on the cold floor. When she reached the living room, she saw her. A woman. Tall. Stylish. Wearing red lipstick like it was war paint. She stood in front of Damon with fire in her eyes. "You think you can erase me, Damon?" she snapped. Elsie froze. Damon looked tired. He ran his hand through his hair. "Vivian, this isn't the time." Vivian laughed bitterly. "It never is with you." Then her eyes caught Elsie, and narrowed. "Oh," she said slowly. "So this is the reason. The little bride." Elsie stepped back. Damon moved between them. "Don't talk to her." Vivian smirked. "You married a child. How rich. How predictable." "I said enough." Damon shouted. Vivian grabbed something from her purse and threw it on the table. "Papers. Photos. Letters. Then explain these to your little flower." And just like that, she stormed out, heels clicking like thunder. Elsie stared at the papers. Her hands trembled as she picked them up. Old photos of Damon, with Vivian. Smiling. Kissing. Together. Letters full of sweet words. Promises. And worse. A contract. Elsie read the heading. Marriage agreement proposal, 5 years commitment, business merge deal. She looked up at Damon, her voice barely a whisper. "Was this what I was too?" Damon's face turned pale. "Elsie, no. That's not how it is anymore." "But that's how it started," she said. Tears filled her eyes. "You used me. I didn't know you'd matter to me." Damon's voice cracked. Elsie stepped back. "That doesn't make it better." She dropped the papers and ran upstairs. She stayed in her room all day. No garden. No music. No Damon. Only tears. She thought she had found something real. Something slowly growing between them. But now, it all felt like lies wrapped in ribbons. That night, Damon knocked on her door. "Please, let me explain." Silence. "I don't want you to leave," he said. "I never wanted this marriage at first." "That's true. But Elsie, you changed everything." She still didn't open the door. So Damon did something he hadn't done in years. He sat outside the door. all night, like a man with nowhere else to be. Inside, Elsie pressed her ear to the wood. She heard his breathing, his stillness, his sadness, and deep inside her, a voice whispered, "Maybe love doesn't start perfect. Maybe it starts broken and chooses to grow." The next morning, Elsie opened the door. Damon was still sitting there, eyes tired, suit wrinkled. He looked up at her like a child who had been waiting for the rain to stop. "Come in," she said softly. He stood. No pride, no sharpness, just quiet. They sat on the bed. The silence between them was thick, but not angry anymore. It was waiting for truth. "I never told you the whole story," Damon began. Elsie stayed still, watching him. He took a breath. "When I was 16, my father died." She blinked. "He was the only one who ever believed in me," Damon continued. "After that, my mother broke down. We lost our house. Everything. I dropped out of school to work." Elsie's heart ached. "I built everything I have from nothing. But I built it with fear. I told myself, if I just had enough money, no one could ever hurt me again." He looked down at his hands. "So I made a deal with Vivian. It was never love. Just two broken people trying to win in a cold world. But it ended badly. She wanted more than I could give." Elsie asked, "Why didn't you just marry for love?" Damon smiled sadly. "Because love means letting someone inside. And I didn't think I had anything soft left inside me." He looked into her eyes. "Until you." Elsie didn't speak. She just reached out and gently touched his wrist, then rolled up the sleeve. Her breath caught. Scars. Faint. But real. Running across his arm like forgotten pain. He didn't pull away. "They're old," he said. "But they remind me. I was once close to giving up." Elsie's hand trembled. She leaned forward and placed her forehead gently against his shoulder. "I'm sorry you went through that alone," she whispered. Damon blinked fast, like someone fighting tears. "You're not alone anymore," she said, voice cracking. He wrapped his arms around her slowly, carefully, as if afraid she'd break. And for the first time, their hug wasn't out of duty or comfort. It was healing. That night, they sat by the fire again. No music. No cocoa. Just skin against skin, hand in hand. Elsie leaned her head against his chest and whispered, "You are not a monster." And Damon let a single tear fall, because no one had ever said that to him before. Let's take a soft breath together, because when two wounded hearts finally kiss, it's not just romance, it's redemption. The days that followed were different. The air felt lighter, like something heavy had been set down and left behind. Damon no longer walked with cold shoulders and tight lips. He smiled sometimes now. Not big, not loud, but real. And Elsie, she glowed. She laughed more. Her eyes sparkled like morning dew on roses. Something was growing. Something no one could see, but both could feel. One evening, Elsie baked cookies in the big kitchen. She wore a white apron way too big for her, and flour kissed her nose. Damon walked in, stopping at the door. He didn't say a word. He just watched her. How she danced while waiting for the oven to beep. How she talked to herself while mixing the dough. How she looked more beautiful in that moment than any fancy model on a magazine cover. "Are you just going to stare?" she teased, finally noticing him. He smirked. "You look like home." Elsie blinked. The mixer stopped. She turned around slowly. "What did you say?" "I said," he stepped closer, "you look like home." They were inches apart now. The room was quiet. Even the clock seemed to hold its breath. Damon lifted his hand and gently brushed the flour off her nose. Elsie smiled. "Thanks." But he didn't pull his hand away. Instead, he traced her cheek. Softly. Like he'd never touched anything so precious. "Can I?" he asked. She didn't speak. She just nodded. And Damon leaned in. Their lips touched. Warm. Careful. Unrushed. It wasn't the kind of kiss that burns. It was the kind that melts. It didn't scream passion. It whispered trust. Elsie felt safe. Seen. Held. And Damon? He felt forgiven. When they pulled back, he rested his forehead against hers. "I've kissed women before," he said quietly. "But this is the first one I'll never forget." Elsie smiled shyly. "Me too." That night, they didn't sleep far apart. They lay side by side on the couch in front of the fire again. Their hands tangled together, heartbeat to heartbeat. They didn't say, "I love you," yet. But they didn't need to. The kiss had already said it for them. The journey we've taken together has led to this moment. A night that holds promises in the quietest ways. Crescent moon sparkles. The day of their wedding had been beautiful, simple, elegant, full of promises whispered between them in moments of quiet. But when the wedding was over, the truth remained. The night wasn't what anyone expected. Elsie stood in front of the mirror, dressed in a soft white gown. It wasn't the traditional wedding dress. She had chosen something small, comfortable, something that felt like her. Her fingers trembled as she adjusted her veil. "It's just a night," she reminded herself. Just another night with Damon. Damon entered their bedroom quietly, his tuxedo jacket still perfectly in place. He wasn't in a rush. No stress. No tension. He just stood by the door, watching her. Elsie looked up. "You're not going to?" "No," Damon smiled. "I'm not going to rush you, Elsie." Her eyes softened. She stepped toward him slowly, her breath catching when their eyes met. "I don't know how to be a wife, Damon," she said quietly, as if admitting a secret. He reached out to touch her cheek. His hand was warm, grounding. "You don't have to know yet," he said gently. "You don't need to be perfect. Just be you." She looked up at him with the most vulnerable expression he had ever seen. "I'm scared," she admitted. "I'm scared because I don't know what's next. What happens after tonight?" Damon took her hands in his. "What happens is this. You and me. The same way we are right now. Just us. No pretending." Elsie's heart softened at the sincerity in his voice. She had expected the pressure of wedding night expectations. Of what was supposed to happen, what she had read in books and seen in movies. But Damon, he had removed every ounce of pressure. He kissed her softly. And for the first time in their entire marriage, their kiss was not driven by desire or urgency. It was slow, gentle, tender. It felt like the beginning of something real, something they could build. Together. They lay down on the bed, no rush, no expectations. Just the feeling of warmth, trust, and the comfort of each other's presence. Damon pulled her close, tucking her head against his chest. "This is perfect," he whispered, eyes closing. "This is enough." Elsie smiled, her own eyes fluttering shut. "It is," she agreed, feeling the weight of her worries lift away. The wedding night didn't turn out the way she had feared. It wasn't about a perfect moment or a perfect night. It was about growing together. And in the quiet moments they shared, both knew that love, at its deepest form, was never about rushing or trying to be perfect. It was about being real, being safe, and being together. If you enjoyed this one, don't miss out on the next. Subscribe to our Daily Stories YouTube channel and dive into a new adventure every day. From thrilling romances to emotional journeys, we've got it all. Speech Balloon, join the community. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story that'll touch your heart. See you tomorrow with a brand new tale.